you need to think a lot about your business, and then have those conversations with your team, and you really shift the responsibilities. There's all this kind of structure that allows for then people to have more autonomy with what they have to do, to have more clarity towards what to have to do, and then to have clear expectations.
Welcome to Business Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Mark Hawkridge. Today, my guest is Julien Marzouk, an executive coach with SaaS Academy and currently my business coach. He's a seasoned business strategist and Columbia University credentialed executive coach who's worked with over 150 different companies. He's also the co-founder of a company called Kinesis Partners, which is a boutique strategy consulting and coaching firm specialized in helping entrepreneurs and CEOs launch and grow their businesses into new markets. Julien, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's great to be here. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. So let's start maybe by, I'd love to just know a little bit more of background, right? So tell me a bit more about your journey to becoming a coach, and when did you realize that coaching was your calling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that you're starting there.
Yeah, my background is in strategy consulting. I worked at big firm in Europe, in Paris and in New York. And at the time in New York, there were a lot of SaaS businesses that were starting to come from Europe. They saw the opportunity to get in early on the US market, right, to gain market shares. And so I started this practice, Kinesis Partners, to specifically help them with go-to-market strategies and scaling, as I was seeing a lot of them that were coming just not having done their homework at all, and just having to, invest and hire people to just let them go 1 year later. So I really tailored my practice towards this market entry software industry. And very quickly we did well because the word of mouth was good. We helped over 50 companies, at that time. That was cool. And, a lot did well. One became a unicorn. And basically doing that work, working one-on-one with the founders, I just realized that was my jam.
I like
That's
that.
great.
Yeah, the relationship, the trust, the challenges, that kind of lab, when you can just talk about anything, strategize, look
Yeah.
into things.
Seems like
And
such a unique opportunity or unique fit as well. I mean, people trying to enter the U.S. marketplace and no idea how to do it and how to do it well. Yeah, sounds like you found a great niche.
it was a good niche, and I just found it. It was there because of my own journey. Like I was hanging out, with entrepreneurs from Europe. So I was seeing this firsthand. I was seeing them struggle. I was seeing them fail, and I was like, okay, there might be something there. And yeah, it's just like at the time, we had less. It was less of a thing, like it was just the beginning of SaaS businesses or just companies thinking like, okay, I can actually come to the US and be successful. And yeah, it was really blue ocean, and a lot of people didn't know how to do it, of course, and underestimated, the daunting task that it is. Basically, you have to start a business again, and very quickly, we understood that uh, any such project would only happen with one of the founders, one of the co-founders coming to the US, um, and just living here for a while, building a team, having a runway, and just uh, having having the means to do it right, and to actually hire a team, and keep at it for a couple of years. And when that roadmap became apparent, it was pretty cool because it sounded like we cracked the code at the time, even though it was market entry, market expansion, but for people that I think didn't, for them it was new to
Yeah.
consulting. right? It's like they were not used to buying consulting for at all, basically. They were not corporations or investment funds. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And when I saw the relationships and like how satisfying it was, I just took it to the next step and applied to the program at Columbia and just really loved the process and after that I started working with you know bigger companies, scale ups based in the US, some that are might be familiar, Duolingo, Oscar Health,
Sure. Yeah.
CB Insights, and really working there on new types of projects related to leadership, basically cross-functional collaborations, setting a structure basically
Yeah, that's great.
at the leadership team level.
When you with just kind of jumping back to Kinesis and working with these European companies, was there a distinct difference in the way that they approached startups or approached scaling than what you see in U.S. companies?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Very different, very different. Like I always say, at the time people I used to know in Paris, they had their business reach 1 million. They thought they made it. It was like, I've scaled. That's it. I can relax.
Done. Yeah.
It's just the scale is not the same. Like what would be satisfying there would be so different here, and also the numbers would not work in the same way. Because of how much things cost and the size of the market and of the investments. And so, yeah, at the beginning, here, teams already a business that had a team of like 20 people, they would not understand why it would not work, why they would not be profitable or why it would not be satisfying, but it's just like here, it's different, especially when you're in New York and the salaries and the real estate at the time that you needed to make it
Yeah.
happen.
It's shocking. Yeah. That's great. So, as a business coach, and we work with so many different companies and leaders, and you're in a unique vantage point to identify and address kind of common growth challenges that many businesses face. I'd like to dig into that a little bit more, and specifically into the growth challenges. And what do you see as the secrets to identifying and then sequencing growth initiatives for the most success?
Yeah, I love this question. And it's it's actually quite easy, but you just have to realize that at some point you're going to have to do one thing and then another thing, right? I think founders very commonly try to do a lot of things at the same time. They are spread too thin, and it ends up not being really productive, right? And so, you probably heard me that, very often at SaaS Academy, we're like, okay, we're going to do one thing at a time, one ICP, one channel, and a tool that we have that is very useful is basically starting with low-hanging fruits, sales velocity. Okay, so you have different types of clients. You have already a few things going on, as a founder, and let's look into it. Let's look at the pipeline that you can build for each type of client. Let's look at your annual deal size, the conversion rate, and your sales cycle. And with that, we can already compare, different ICPs and different options, and just look how much, MRR or ARR you can bring on a monthly basis, and start there. Like if there is a clear acceleration that's possible with one segment, and there always is, let's start there.
It's
Obviously,
just it's just counterintuitive, I think, for the founder, right? Where one, there's just so many options for growth acceleration, so many technologies, and you feel like you need to be taking advantage of all of these different things and running in parallel paths. And I think what I've gathered from what you're saying is you sometimes need to slow down to go faster, right? You need to focus more intentionally on one thing and master that before taking on another.
So true, exactly. Yeah, it is counterintuitive. It's hard, because you feel like you have to almost give away, so many opportunities, and you feel like time to market is of the essence, and you don't want to
Right.
miss out, and actually, it is counterintuitive, I believe, and it's always hard. I can see that when founders first encounter that challenge of sequencing the growth, it's always hard to actually realize that it's not saying no. It's just doing it later.
Yeah, not now versus no. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
I mean, to that point though, how do you know when it's time to when maybe you've mastered one? How do you know when you've mastered that? And how do you know when to move to the next strategy? And how do you know which of the next things? And how do you sequence those?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's never finished, obviously. But for the size of the businesses we're talking about, around give or take 1 million annual revenue, basically when the engine is set up, when the teams can act on, building the revenue on their own, when they have some autonomy, then usually, the founders realize that, okay, this this works. The engine is working. Let me start something else. Let me try to dedicate my time and create resources to build the next thing.
It's that predictability maybe that is the point that you say, okay, I know I can count on this. It's working. It's kind of on, or maybe has a flywheel effect or somewhat on autopilot. And now I can now tackle the next strategy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is a part that is related to revenue, right? It's like, okay, we are consistently bringing in, 50K revenue each month, new revenue. This channel is working. This ICP is working. I do not need to put out fires, too frequently regarding that project. There is some sort of a thing going, basically, without needing too much of attention. So it sounds like people know what they have to do. They understood, how this works. I'm going to start doing something else.
You mentioned kind of sales as the first example there. Is that typically the first motion that you see businesses tackle as the kind of a maybe even a founder led sales effort or certainly kind of sales led motion?
Great question. It depends. Um, you have you have a lot of different scenarios. I mean, you really have um, companies that just grew based on the skills that they had internally, and usually the skills of the founders, right? So, if the founder came from a background of marketing, then usually it's going to be marketing led, and so there's going to be a lot of SEO and Google search and paid ad content. If it comes from someone who's been used to selling or enterprise, then there's going to be a lot of cold calling or email and then calling, combination of outbound, basically. Um, Definitely. And usually what I do is and what we believe it as SAS Academy is just to double down on what's already working. So if you have something going on in outbound, you already have the skills, then usually there's room to really make it better, or just the quick wins are there, right?
Yeah.
Optimizing what's already working. So that's one. And that's always a great way to go, like doubling down on what's already working, perfecting it, optimizing it, scaling what's already working. If we take a step back and if I look at all the businesses today that we're working with, there are like three maybe big categories. And motions, that combo of motions that work well. One is the combo of email outreach and then, calling the leads to set up a demo call.
Yep.
That combo is widely spread. People have realized recently that just doing emailing, it's not enough anymore, that you need to call them after that to set up a demo. And so that's kind of more and more established that that's a successful way to go. And then if you're going to do marketing led, then obviously content marketing is huge today, right? Not easy to do, but a lot of people are doing it. Whether we're talking about long form, short form videos, and obviously podcast. Very popular, and it's usually when they're going that route, then they're going to do usually some paid ads, Google search, a meta, and they're going to have like a motion that also includes a lead magnet.
Yep.
Which they can use the lead magnet for the paid ads. This way they generate awareness, and they also start building pipeline, with email addresses and information. So that's also that's good. And a lot of them also do paid ads for webinars. Like they enroll people in webinars. The paid ad goes to a landing page with a edited video of the webinar. That works well. That works well, especially for businesses that have something a little unique. Where they're able to attract people to their webinar. People are interested in what they have to say, or the content itself. So that's number two, right? Marketing led. And then number three is partnerships. We see a lot of partnerships. Some businesses are solely focused on building their businesses on the partnership channel.
When you talk about partnerships, are you talking primarily about kind of affiliate partners, or was this more true technology partnerships that maybe bring also a sales arm to it?
Yeah. I'm really talking about channel partners. Honestly, we're not seeing a lot of affiliates for B2B SaaS because people don't really care for the additional like $1,000 that it's
right. You've got to have a huge network to make that meaningful.
Exactly. And people prefer to work on their business than for somebody else's business. So it really needs to be a win-win. And the way it usually shapes is you have either a joint marketing is at the core of the partnership, right? So I'm going to talk about you in my podcast or in my newsletter, and you talk about me in your video, and creating a cadence on a monthly or quarterly basis, when there's going to be some initiatives, marketing wise, content wise, and they're going to leverage that. Some even advertise on somebody else's account and audience, exchanging audiences like that. So those definitely work really well. And then it's just exchanging leads, you're working with the same with the same clients. And so we're going to get together every month, and I'm going to share 20 leads with you, and you're going to share 20 leads with me. We're going to decide which ones we're doing introductions to, which one we're just going to, share, and then do our own thing.
Sure.
That works really well as well.
Do you find that that tends to work better when the two organizations are selling higher ticket items, more like enterprise level, or do you see that work equally effective in businesses that have a low ACV or price points?
Yeah, I mean, I see that working also with lower ACVs. Definitely. It's a good fit for them as well, as they don't have a lot of resources, not necessarily huge marketing budget. So having the possibility, to do some lead generation thanks to, a partner without investing, dollars, just time and, having a structure. It's always the difference between successful and unsuccessful partnerships is when you have a program, right? So someone reaches out to you, and they have a clear program to offer. They have like clear expectations, prerequisites for the partnerships to be active, a cadence for meetings. Once you have that, even for smaller businesses and small lower SCPs, it works.
So now I think you're tapping into maybe the secrets here, because boy, I've seen so many partnerships, or at least on the surface, that there's these partnership opportunities that never really turn into real business, right? Or there's a lot of excitement, enthusiasm on the front end, and then they just kind of shrivel on the vine. What's the framework, or what's the play to run a successful partner program?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what we're seeing as well. And we're seeing that if there's always someone reaching out to somebody else, right? So if a business is reaching out to another business with, a plan, with clarity, meaning, we are going to onboard you in the month of October 2024 because we need a full month to onboard our partners. So would you like to be that partner for the month of October 2024? What we'll need from you is a commitment to show up once a month to check on progress, to provide minimum 2 newsletters. We're going to talk about us, X, Y, and Z. In the same time, we're going to provide X, Y, and Z. And if this doesn't work, if it's not met, then for a couple of months in a row, then the partnership will not be active anymore. Like, so when you hear that, not only do you see structure, but you also see value. You're like, okay, these people are serious about their investment in this. If the company presents opportunities and you're talking to the same clients, it makes sense to give it a shot, and like, okay, this looks like there's value there, and I'm gonna put in the time and see where this goes. And once you've positioned the partnership this way, then you're more willing to invest time and to actually take a risk to get some results.
Yeah, I like that you're setting expectations for tactical execution, right? And there's a requirement around it versus just the hope and pray, right? Like, we put this partnership together and we just believe it's going to be fruitful, despite the fact that we don't have clear action plans. And yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like everything in a way. It's like you need to stand out, and you need to put yourself in the shoes of who you're reaching out to, and how am I gonna find a way to create some common interest.
yeah. You mentioned earlier, you were talking just about kind of the cold email followed by phone, and which I think is a mainstay, that it works if you put in the activity, right? With all the businesses you're working with, which are primarily SaaS companies, what are you seeing right now as the best lead generation strategies that are actually working for your clients?
Yeah. Today, I think that one.
That one, yeah,
That one, yeah. I mean, when you're building a new channel, this one is, if you have, the skills internally, right? This one is pretty reliable. It's like, you know that if people put in the work, that their email sequences really target the pain points of their ICPs, that they add value in each communication they are sending, and then that you have, actual SDRs that you pay, that are, incentivized, and that know that, their role is really um, to book a demo. That's
yeah,
the goal,
yeah,
to book a demo, and to leverage, the data that they have. Usually, like they start with the high open rates of the email sequences. Just prioritize well, and n- and then just knowing a few techniques. Like, and today, like, people just starting with, people, you know businesses in your situation usually have this problem, and the solution that they're currently using to solve this problem is causing that frustration. And so if you have like a few of those that you can test out, with your leads, and then once you find one where that sticks, where there is traction, then just transition into, well, the way we're doing that is a little different, and I'd like our expert to talk to you about it. Call next week. It's just like I feel like there's already now a lot of knowledge on all those tools. Email outreach, a cold outreach, demo converting, and so it's, if you do it well, it works really well. It works really well.
I think that's the big caveat, though. Is, I mean, there's so many things out there, right? There's so many new technologies, people doing AI driven cold email. There's a bazillion list providers. It's just, like, how do you find the right recipe there? And I'm just curious, maybe walk me through that. I mean, is the list most important? Is it your email sequences, making sure that it's speaking to that ICP? Is it the phone follow up? Is it all of that? Just wondering, like, and how do you um, as a business leader parse through all the stuff that's available and just get down to the basic blocking and tackling that will work?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's hard, and it takes time, right? And it's not like building any other channel is easy, right? So it's going to take a little while. Um, the one thing, the first thing, if we start the process with, email outreach, all the emails now that do not add value, like just following up on this one or two,
Right. Just
all
bumping
this,
this to the top. I hate that one.
exactly,
Yeah.
like all these are, completely counterproductive. Well, today, we'll have like full inboxes, and the idea is really to stand out with value, quality content. So what we're seeing as successful usually is just like, people, hitting on the different pain points for their ICPs, and leveraging different formats, like use cases, testimonials, um, trends, strategies, and just, having variety in what they share. And so out of, 7, 8 emails, if the ICP has taken a look at one or two, and has seen some value and sees that there could be a fit, then when the salesperson, the SDR, is going to call them, they're going to be much more likely to take the call. It's like, they're like, oh yeah, that was actually interesting. Let me take a minute of my time here to know more. And so, we're like today, it's like you really want to be super precise, at every step of the way, so that the small windows that open, you actually have a shot at moving them further along the funnel.
It seems like the key in that, or one of the keys in that, is truly understanding your customer or your prospect, and understanding where they may be, in kind of the decision arc of maybe they're currently frustrated with the solution that they're using, or they have no solution, but really understanding the core issues and how to articulate those so that they resonate with that prospect. Yeah, and I see a lot of people. I see a lot of folks that maybe don't understand that with as much clarity as they should.
So true. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you really need to understand the person you're talking to, and it goes, for the whole process, even when they start working with your solution, if you're lucky, and then they become a client, it's like you really need to understand um, what's their day to day, how are they using the solution, what are their challenges, um, what are the behaviors where you're helping them, what's in the way, it's, and we talked recently about this book by Claire Sulentrop, Forget the Funnel, putting back at the center, customer knowledge, customer research, and just, to have that deeply ingrained into your business, to always have, understanding your customers on your radar, like always trying to add value, to understand where there are those common interests and commonalities, and what can create synergies.
Yeah, I mean, I love the work that Claire and a partner did on that, and I think they give a really good actionable framework, like follow these steps and ask these kinds of questions. I think it still requires a curious mind, that it requires, I've gone through that forget the funnel process, and it delivered good value, really good insights. But I also was left, at least as the one who wasn't doing the interviews directly, with maybe two other questions. Like if we'd gone just a little bit further with our curiosity, we could have unlocked the real gold, right? And yeah, I think there's lesson there. I'm not sure we have that figured out, but
That's No, I love that you're saying that actually, because very often, like, I have clients telling me, well, I did what you said, like I reached out to clients, and, I sent a survey, and this is what I gathered. And I'm like, yeah, it's valuable, but, there are still a lot of questions here,
right.
and at some point you want to be able to go deep, with your clients, and just to be able to dig deeper, to really understand their situation, their processes and ecosystem, environment, you name it. And there's nothing like, like an in-depth conversation. And you're right that it takes a certain type of mindset to actually lead those conversations with curiosity, like just being driven by your curiosity to figure it out.
Yeah, and it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, I think, well, it's easy to follow a script or follow a series of questions. Um, you have to have contextual knowledge of your customer to even ask good questions, I think. And I'm becoming more and more aware of that, and making sure that we're spending the time, and also having the vulnerable conversations, even as the vendor or solution provider, to tease out that nuance, because that's where, I guess, I don't know, using one of Dan Martell's, right, the riches are in the niches, and it's you have to dig.
So true. So true. And I love it that you said, like, that you have to, uh, yeah, sometimes, be in a vulnerable spot, and just come from a place of just really making space uh, for someone, for a client to research, to get to the nugget that's going to be valuable, right?
Right. Right. And establishing, I think, a culture of that within your organization. And, one of our core values is curiosity, but I think in making people both aware and even accountable for that, we want to see that over and over.
Absolutely. And I'm not surprised that it's an important value at Property Radar, given their leader.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have lots of questions. Not all the answers, but lots of questions.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. But I mean, I think like coming from a place where there is that forum, right? There is a forum to ask the questions, something that is well received, I think goes a long way.
Well, maybe we can use that as a transition point to talk a little bit more about leadership and team building. Um, as a small business leader, what tips can you provide, to create a culture of accountability, whether that be around curiosity or anything else? How do you establish that culture of accountability?
Yeah. I mean, that's the holy grail, isn't it? Like
Feels
that
like it. Yeah.
feels like it. Like every CEO wants that. You want your teams to be empowered, to know what they have to do to produce without you having to be on top of them, of everything all the time, right? To have each brick growing and people being fulfilled, feeling empowered, autonomous. That's huge. It's definitely not easy.
Well, I think that's interesting, even as you just described it. I mean, I think people have different definitions of accountability. Mine is not the micromanagement and, stick approach, but rather, like you were saying, the empowerment and ownership. Um, that's the type of accountability I want to create.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you help business leaders create that?
Yeah. So
We're seeing two different things that are very powerful to create such a culture. On the one hand, you want to have the structure that allows it. And the structure that allows it is, there's nothing revolutionary here, but it's so important. It's having very clear metrics for each team member, that they are going to be that are going to be important for them, that are going to be indicative of their work, and specific goals for those metrics. Right? That's the first thing. Having them enrolled into defining those metrics and defining those goals. Those goals still, needs to be meaningful. So either they're part of a vivid vision or a strategic plan, or they just make sense for something that they're trying to do. And once that is established, the team member owns those goals. They are responsible for reaching 20 demos, per week, or reducing the time to response in customer success from 3 days to 2.5. They own those goals. That's huge. That's already a first. That's a huge shift.
I like that. I'm just sorry to interrupt. I like the two that you just threw out. I mean, both of those kind of fit this model that I like to use for metrics, which is that they're predictive of success and that they're influenceable by that person, right? So both of those that you just described or fit those beautifully.
yeah, thank you. And I think a lot of people, it gets confused because there's this whole conversation whether like you should use leading indicators or lagging indicators. I think you need both.
Yeah, it
I
has to
think
be a combination, right?
combination works great, and so that's a huge step. Not easy. Usually takes a while because like, you need to think a lot about your business, and then, have those conversations with your team, and you really shift the responsibilities. So it takes a while. Some things that are useful to accomplish that is to ask your team member to be the one to share the agenda for each one-on-one seat, before the meeting, and to start every meeting with, how are we doing related to your goals, progress towards goals. That works really well. And so there's all this kind of structure, that allows for then people to have more autonomy with what they have to do, to have more clarity towards what to have to do, and then to have clear expectations. But I think, and I notice that it's not enough. There's a whole other side that's really related to, acknowledging for the leaders what are the behaviors that they're going to reward in the company. Eventually, culture. The culture of a business is the behaviors that are rewarded. Whether whether it's acknowledged or not.
Right, intentional or not, absolutely.
Exactly. Intentional or not, that's culture. And so once you have leaders that have clarity around that, there are very clear actions that they can take that can allow their teams to continue to feel more empowered. And a few examples, like very often, like the type of behaviors that we're seeing for early stage businesses is, or not just actually for all businesses, let's be honest. On the one hand, like people that are complaining, I couldn't do my job, or I couldn't reach my goal because I didn't have this document in time, or blaming, I couldn't reach my goal because Bob didn't do what he had to do. Also, like a very common one, like the rescuing manager, like manager just takes over the problem and just fixes it because it goes faster, but then you're not building capability with your team. You're not actually understanding what's the root problem
Right.
for the team member.
Right.
And so you're just maintaining this status quo where people are disempowered. And so when you start, acknowledging this type of behaviors, talking about them, and also rewarding at all hands in communication, like what you're actually looking for, like what can you do at your with your role, at your level, with the resources that you have to actually advance this problem, having this kind of entrepreneurial mindset, at every level, instead of complaining, what can I do? That's huge. That's the first step. For the managers, just asking a few questions. I can do this. Yes. We all. Everybody's super busy these days, but taking these few minutes to ask, okay, so what is it exactly that you're struggling with? Okay, tell me, like, where was the roadblock? What specifically don't you know there? What prevented you from making that connection between this problem and reaching out to that person? Just a few follow-up questions, coaching them so that there's progress being done, so that they understand the type of thinking process that will help them.
I really like that. I think so often, like that rescuing manager that you talked about, is so often if you jump in and solve or take action, you're really robbing that employee of the opportunity to learn, and then setting the stage for them to continue to come to you to solve future problems. It's just kind of a downward spiral.
100%. Absolutely. It's huge, and it's very much understandable why managers do that, like it goes faster very often. It's always like, okay, am I going to do it myself, or am I going to delegate this? It might take 3 times as long if I delegate it. But in the same time, you want to invest in your team. You want to invest in developing your team, and that's the only way to scale anyway. So There's a part, that's relates to education, to training. Um, and there's something that eventually also I think is um, maybe the most efficient for creating that culture of accountability. But I think that only happens later on, once you've already gone through different hoops, is creating that taste for doing things well, that taste for excellence. And we see, you immediately recognize it when you're in a business, in a team, in a company where that's present, where everybody just wants to do things well. They want to surpass themselves, you recognize it immediately when you're, in a culture like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, there again, it can be really sometimes counterintuitive to a founder, right? Who is maybe has that drive for excellence themselves, and as a result, maybe steps in and is constantly, over the shoulder of an employee, again, not robbing them of the opportunity to be the owner, have the learning, and establish that accountability for that item going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so true. I feel like it took me a while to understand that ideally you want to talk about what you're looking for, the results that you're looking for, how you're going to measure that result, what metrics you're going to use, but then leave the how completely up to the team member, ideally, you
That
know,
can be so hard for leaders.
so
It's very easy to give them the how versus just giving them the what, letting them be.
yeah, it's also like it's hard because it's like, you have the meter, it's like the meter is on, it's like
Right.
money is being spent, I'm want results, and it's very much understandable. So and then it's, you know the theory, and you're trying to navigate it all with this kind of ideas and bits of and pieces of knowledge that you gathered along the way.
Yeah. So I think about some of the things you pulled out there just to kind of summarize. I mean, you started with that kind of clarity of vision. You threw out the vivid vision as an example there. Then there's, clear goals and behaviors that you threw in there. Having metrics that are aligned with those goals. And then you also talked about this kind of cadence of communication, which I think is really important. I really liked what you brought out there. Um, is there more that I'm missing?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a lot about the leader, right? So if there are like huge, um, how to put it, blind spots, or yeah, lack of knowledge from the leader on how they function, on how he or she functions, or things that they don't understand why they find it hard, or they don't understand how important it is to create that culture. Obviously, none of that can work, because there's going to be too much confusion on what is actually rewarded, what is actually recognized, and whether or not that's something that the leader actually wants, to create that culture of accountability. And, I think that's why leadership coaches are more and more like researched and demanded um, at businesses, because like very often you can't do it on your own. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of small changes. It's also like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what your blind spots are, and so figuring that out is it usually requires the help of a sounding board.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as one, I love coaching and rely on it a lot. I mean, I think it's also just surfacing what's most important to, so it may not even be that you're you know, educating me on a new concept necessarily, but it's just drawing my attention to another way of looking at it, or even just drawing it to the forefront so that I'm forced to face the real obstacle, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And just to be very clear, I was not talking about us before. Usually you're the one who is teaching me something, it's I'm just providing a space, that's all with you. So I just want to clarify that.
I'm not sure that's always the case, but I appreciate it.
Most often, most often.
Let me ask you. So, you know, and this maybe is really important for kind of these listeners that are kind of engineering founders and things like that. But in order to be the most effective leader, you got to put your time and focus where you have your superpowers. Um, and that's contrary to what you're thrust into now as the business leader, business owner, right? You're wearing tons of hats. How do you help leaders to recapture their time and then apply their focus and energy on things that both matter most to them as well as where they have a unique capability to excel at?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best framework that's been put out there so far is dance, and I'm not just saying because I have this relationship with SAS Academy, but I really love the framework that it created. Looking at what's giving you energy, what's draining you on the one hand, and then what's bringing you money versus what's not. And with this those two axes, you have those four quadrants: production, delegation, investment, and replacement. And it's easy to position, the different things that you have to do on that matrix and to start taking action. Like a lot of founders do a time audit, one day, 24 hours. Some do it over a week, but to have actual clarity on what they do and how they spend their time. And then, put it under the lens of this framework to understand what can be delegated immediately, meaning it's draining for me and it's not bringing money. What I need to keep doing, because even though it's not bringing money right now, it's giving me energy, so it will at some point, or it should have an impact that will be powerful at some point. And replacement, which is usually bringing money but draining, so it usually takes longer to delegate, but to start putting things in place in order to be able to do that eventually. I think that's a great approach. I really like that. I abide by it, and I'm sharing it when I can. And it's not just about time is not just it's relative, right? So I like this approach that is not just focused on productivity and efficiency, that is also related to the energy that you get from it, because we all know that, but
It was one of my stumbling blocks in that. I mean, I love the book and the framework. As I was clearing space for myself, intuitively, I kind of went to, okay, now how do I fill that space with more productive work, albeit things that maybe I'm uniquely capable to do, but it was all about refill it versus creating space for clarity or energy. And yeah, that took me a while, just because I've been very accustomed to just kind of be on that treadmill, right?
I love this. Yeah, refill it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I assume
It's
that's probably a very common trap for most entrepreneurs. I mean, it's just kind of wired that way, and also there's boy, it can be uncomfortable to clear space and have empty space.
absolutely. Yeah. Like, honestly, this year, at least 5 times, I show up to a session with a founder, different founders, and the session lasts 5 minutes, and I'm like, take vacation now. Stop everything. You are just completely drained. You are not making the right decisions. You are being a nightmare to your teams. Just stop now. Take a few days off now, and just refill the cup. And having that on your radar, just it's a balance. You really need to be in a certain place, to be a good leader.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. It's easy to lose sight of that when you're in the midst of it. I mean, again, the value of a coach or a third party to be able to bring that to your awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. Very much easier said than done, but um, yeah, it takes a village.
Yes, it does. Julian, this has been great. Thank you for all your insights. How can people get in touch with you and follow you?
Thanks, Mark. It's my pleasure. Yeah, I can just share my email. I think that's the easier. J is first letter of my first name, Zook, Marzouk at sasacademy.com.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, appreciate your time. This has been a great
Yeah, thanks a
conversation.
lot. I also want to make it very clear that I was supposed to have a backdrop today, a virtual backdrop. So I apologize
That's all right. I
for that.
understand you're doing a remodel and borrowing a friend's apartment. So that's great. I appreciate you making it work.
My
My
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark,
Thank
for
you.
having me.